Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Ang pag-aaralan po natin ngayon mula sa salita ng ating Panginoon ay mababasa po natin sa Romans chapter 13 verses 1 to 5. Babasahin ko po sa New Living Translation. Romans 13, 1 to 5. Respect for authority. Everyone must submit to governing authorities, for all authority comes from God, and those in positions of authority have been placed there by God. So anyone who rebels against authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and they will be punished. For the authorities do not strike fear in people who are doing right, but in those who are doing wrong. Would you like to live without fear of the authorities? Do what is right and they will honor you. The authorities are God's servants sent for your good. But if you are doing wrong, of course you should be afraid, for they have the power to punish you. They are God's servants sent for the very purpose of punishing those who do what is wrong. So you must submit to them not only to avoid punishment, but also to keep a clear conscience. Praise be to God. Romans 13 po talks about submission to authorities or respect for authority. And this applies hindi lamang po sa ating pamahalaan, but also to churches, to our workplace, to schools, even our families, kung saan po may mga tao na naroon para po tayo ay pangunahan o meron po tayong mga authority figures. A quick background lang po ng Romans 13 para mas maintindihan po natin kung kailan isinulat ni Paul at para kanino and ano yung mga circumstances nung time po ng pagkakasulat dito. In Romans 12, Paul was speaking about how believers should live in love and to get along peaceably with all people. Binibigyan po nila ng instructions yung mga mananampalataya na maging at peace sa lahat ng tao. Be people of peace. And then he jumps to chapter 13, telling them that they should submit to authorities or they should respect those with authority over them. Ano po ba yung klase ng gobyerno o pamamalakad noong panahon po ni Paul during the time he wrote this? Karamihan po sa sinusulatan ni Paul, of course, sa Christians, and some of them are Jews, na nakaranas po na paalisin sa Roman Empire ni Emperor Claudius dahil maraming suspicions noon na magkakaroon ng revolution o pag-aaklas laban sa gobyerno. And when Paul wrote this, ang ruler na po ay yung anak na ni Claudius, ni Emperor Claudius, na si Nero. And Nero was one of the most evil rulers of all time. Imagine that. Siya po yung nasa trono nung panahon na ito. And kahit po ganun yung situation, no, na si Nero yung nakaupo, pangit ang gobyerno, wicked, Paul said that the Christians should submit to authorities. And the Bible has a lot to say about submission. It's a command. Okay? And yun daw pong pagsasubmit natin sa tao ay hindi natin maaaring ihiwalay sa submission natin sa ating Panginoon. So ano po ba ang mga bagay na tinuturo sa atin ng Romans 13 tungkol po sa pag-submit or pagsunod, pagpapasailalim po sa mga governing authorities? Tatlong bagay po. Una, since God ordained government authority, then we must submit to it. Verse 1, basahin po natin. Everyone must submit to governing authorities. Everyone. And then 1b says, for all authority comes from God, and those in positions of authority have been placed there by God. Lahat daw po tayo magpasakop sa authorities kasi ang Panginoon daw po natin ang naglagay sa kanila doon sa kanilang mga pwesto. Verse 2, so anyone who rebels against authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and they will be punished. Alam ko po na iba-iba po tayo ng mga preferences when it comes to those who we voted for during the national elections. Even po sa workplace, di ba po, or kung ano mang konteksto niyan na meron po mga authority figures, no? Iba-ibang klaseng otoridad. But in the context of let's say, the Philippine government, iba-iba po tayo ng position dyan. Hindi po natin pinag-uusapan sa church yun kasi we are praying for it individually, yung discernment natin as to who we should vote for. But, ang instruction po ng Bible is, kung tayo po ay tagasunod, if we are one under authority, we must submit to those over it. Wala pong sinabing exemptions dito. At wala rin po sinabi ang Biblia na kung ikaw naman ang nasa posisyon, dapat pwersahin mo yung mga taong nasa ilalim mo na sumunod sa'yo. Wala pong ganon because submission should be voluntary. There should be willing obedience because you are acknowledging the legitimate authority of that person who is above you. That is submission. Okay? In spite of Rome's wickedness and evil, Paul said that they actually serve a God-ordained purpose. Kaya, dapat daw po tayong magpasakop. Marami pong empires in the Old Testament. Alam po natin, Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, they are all wicked empires. Hindi po sila mga people of God. And yet, the Lord used them to carry out His divine purposes. So I believe, in our situation now, kahit marami po tayong mga hinaing, maybe marami po tayong nakakitang hindi tama, ano po, the respect should still be there because that is what the Bible tells us. No? We should respect those in authority kasi kaya po silang gamitin ng Panginoon sa purposes niya, kahit sino pa sila. Second principle, the purpose for government is to protect law-abiding citizens and punish lawbreakers. Sabi po yan sa verses 3 to 4. For the authorities do not strike fear in people who are doing right, but in those who are doing wrong. Kung tayo daw po ay sumusunod, hindi po natin kailangang matakot sa mga otoridad. Ang dapat daw pong matakot yung mga sumusuway. Kasi may kapangyarihan ang mga nasa posisyon na parusahan sila. At ang atin pong mga authorities ay God's servants. Pinadala para daw po sa purpose na parusahan yung mga gumagawa ng mali. Example po, ang ating gobyerno ay pinagbibilin po sa atin magsuot ng face mask, face shield pag tayo po'y lumalabas. When we are put in community quarantine, may mga restrictions po yan. Kung sumusunod po kayo at kayo ay mag-grocery, nakakita po kayo ng barangay tanod o ng pulis, hindi po kayo dapat matakot. Kasi nagko-comply po tayo. Pero kung may ginagawa kang mali, ayaw mong sumunod, of course, matakot ka. Kasi pwede ka nilang parusahan. The problem is not just with people who ought to submit, but equally, doon din po sa nagpapasunod. Totoo naman po yon. Hindi laging ang may problema is yung tagasunod. Minsan, yung tagapagpasunod, meron din pong problema. But, if the government or the leadership serves the right purpose na inintend po sa kanila ng ating Panginoon, then they should be able to protect us. Especially yung mga sumusunod, yung mga law-abiding citizens. Yan. Third principle po, and last, ito po yung pinakahuli, we should submit to government not only because it is for our good, but also because it is right. Verse 5 says, so you must submit to them not only to avoid punishment, but also to keep a clear conscience. Hindi po tayo sumusunod para lamang makaiwas sa parusa, kung hindi, dahil alam po natin, ito po yung tamang gawin. Tandaan po natin, ang government po natin, o kung sino man po yan, maybe church leaders, o yung boss mo sa trabaho mo, nandyan yan for a purpose. Niluklok yan sa pwesto, may reason yon. And meron po silang kailangan gawin para maging orderly yung mga bagay-bagay. And tayo rin po, ganun din. We should be able to obey, to follow them, hindi lang dahil takot ka maparusahan kay, but because we fear God above all else, who knows our hearts. Hindi lang daw po siya outward compliance, but inward obedience to our God. Tandaan po natin, this passage, Romans 13, was written to Christians, whose true citizenship was not to Rome, but to heaven. Unang-una po tayong citizens ng langit, bago po yung citizenship natin sa lupa. As Filipinos, as US citizens, Canadian ka ba, or Australian ka ba, whoever is listening to us right now, unang-una po tayong citizen ng ating Diyos sa langit. Doon pong ating original and true citizenship. And therefore, we should submit to our authorities as if we are doing it for the Lord or to the Lord. Tayo po ay manalangin. Panginoon, maraming salamat po for reminding us today about the purpose of the government or yung mga tao po na nilagay mo in authority para mag-lead po sa amin. Sa church, sa trabaho, sa gobyerno, sa school. Lord, marami po salamat dahil ikaw ang naglagay sa kanila sa kanilang mga pwesto at ginawa mo ito para kami po ay protektahan. Lalong-lalo na Panginoon kung kami po ay sumusunod. Dalangin po namin, Lord, na tulungan mo kaming magkaroon ng respect para po sa mga authorities, to willingly obey, Panginoon, because of our fear sa iyo unang-una, Panginoon, at dahil alam po namin na ito po ang tama at ito po yung pinag-uutos mo sa iyong mga salita. Maraming salamat, Panginoon. Ito po ang aming dalangin sa pangalan ng aming Panginoong Jesus. Amen. Magandang araw po uli sa inyong lahat. Kung kayo po ay na-bless sa ating devotion ngayon, please share to others. Thank you po.